Hey everybody. How do you know when you're doing good enough? How do you know when you are fulfilling your obligations to yourself? How do you know when you have fulfilled your quota for, what you consider to be a good human or a productive human? What is progress? What does it mean to want to move forward or progress in our lives? And for each one of us, that's completely different. All I wanted to talk about here was the idea that society imposes far too many standards on the individual. If we're willing to follow those standards, we'll find ourselves trapped in our own minds, in our own fears, looking at those around us and saying, why am I not successful like this guy, or why am I not happy like these people? When you peek behind the curtains, you see that monetary success does not equal happiness, and as well as many of the people we see on the street or meet as friends or out and about who seem happy, maybe they're not so happy. And I think all of us try to keep a positive outlook on life. I have my own fears, I have my own hopes, my own dreams. Generally, I should say my fears are really none these days, except for that underlying discomfort with not knowing where to go from here. And that's what I mean. Am I fulfilling my obligations to myself? What are my hopes and dreams? I never set aside really any particular goal that I wanted to get out of life except just to be happy. And I think a lot of people have that same, underlying philosophy of, I just want to be happy. And we say the same thing for our children. Well, I just want them to be happy. But if you raise your kids without any oversight and you just let them do whatever they want, they may be happy short term and they'll be miserable later. Whereas if you overly shelter, let's say, your children and say this is for your own good, that old saying, often they miss out on important parts of their lives and they become unhappy as well. It's not just about parenting, that's just one component in the very delicate years when we're young. But as we grow, we start to mature and we say, well, how do I get myself out of some of these patterns and that I've created and imposed upon myself and that have been imposed upon me by others? And it comes down to often the same old question of, what is a real man, for example? Or how do you act woman-like or man-like? And the idea how we're almost trying to separate and blur the lines by saying, oh, well, we can't separate along any type of, lines of sex. We can't talk about race. We can't talk about sex, gender, orientation, any of this. It's a bunch of BS. This is why, for example, this is why people like Jordan Peterson have become so popular. It's because people are sick of hearing, shh, don't talk about that, or be careful what you say around this person, There's a certain sensitivity that comes with it's a direct response to past hostilities and the way some people have been oppressed. It's almost like, as a metaphor, a prisoner gets out of jail and he goes on a rampage to get revenge on everyone else who kept him in prison for so long. You want to speak your mind and you want to let other people know, hey, I can, I have the right to be me too. My point being here that once we start to realize the differences between us, between ourselves, we can start to embrace those. And it doesn't mean, that's why I say when you want to be a man, no. Being a tough guy does not make you a man. Being able to shit-talk people does not make you a man. Nor does bringing home a lot of money and working countless hours. All of these are just subjective ideas of what it means. Nor can you just say being happy makes you a man. The whole idea is a fallacy. Being a man is what you make of it, just like being a woman. Being a human is what you make of it. And this is kind of the crux of my discussion here, which is, how are we supposed to know what we're supposed to be doing? We don't have any comparisons to make to the animal kingdom, for example. It's easy to say, well, look, these apes live in these troops, and these creatures live this way, so let's try this or let's try that. Our intellect, our ability to rationalize ourselves out of anything, is our folly as well as our benefit. So the evolutionary trait which helped us to become as intelligent as we are now, which helped us to survive during times of sparse food, it's letting us down. In other words, we have to make the most of this our, what we call intelligence, our rationality, our ability to write down our ideas and pass them down and build upon them, and that's just it. Animals can pass down ideas from, parent to children. These sometimes die out with the troop or the group. But with humans, we have thousands of years of discovery and realizations that we're building upon. And then we have to go back and recheck what our ancestors wrote down. Say, wait a minute, is this still true? Does this still hold true? And find out that it's too late. 5, 10, 20 generations have already believed something for 1,000 years, and it's set in stone. They say, well, if it goes that far back, it must be true. So that's what I mean about us holding ourselves back by having these ideas of what is normal and what's right and what we should be doing. So, on one hand, we fooled ourselves. We're so confused we can't even follow our own hearts because we're so twisted up in the reality of the world and the society that we're born into. But at the same time, if we run off and try to think of our own path and figure it out on our own, we may have more problems than if we look at society as a whole and say, okay, I don't want to be a follower. I don't want to be like everybody else around me. I want to do my own thing. But maybe what I want to do follows the line of what somebody else wanted to do. Maybe I want to be an artist, so you don't just wander off and say, I'm going to create my own technique, before doing a little bit of research into saying, okay, what type of paint should I use? What's better, a canvas or a paper? What is my medium? And by exploring what other artists have used, a person can say, ooh, this is what I want to do. And it's the same way with carpenter. Let's say I'm a carpenter, so like over the years I would watch the Finnish carpenters do the fine woodwork. I said, that's what I want to do. A lot of the other guys, they didn't want to do it. It was tedious to them. But I enjoyed it because I love crafts. I love crafting and designing things. But I don't like the design aspect. I just like the hands-on. There was a person for every different, aspect of the construction project. And nobody was fighting for each other's jobs. We all just liked it where we were. And the same thing with all humans, all groups. We should be content with where we are and embrace our strengths as best we can. And really just sit down and ask ourselves, what moves me? What can I do with this? Because there are 1,000 motivational videos out there with inspirational background music, and they'll show guys running and boxing and say, you can do it. You just take initiative. The one thing that's often left out is, what do you want to get out of it? I mean, do you want short-term monetary gain? Do you want long-term health? A little bit of everything? Being motivated is only part of the story. But having a clear picture in our mind of what we want is the most difficult thing, because that will change over time. So if you're 20 now, your vision of what you want when you're 40, I guarantee it'll change. And me being 42 now, I'm sure by the time I'm 60, my vision will change again. And that's okay. It's about embracing the now while using our lessons from the past to try to plan slightly for the future. But always it comes down to balance. If we lean too far one direction, if we start causing controversy, if we end up fighting a lot about one thing, there's something wrong. We're not balanced. And if your right and left brain aren't in balance, then you're either not creative enough or you're not rational enough. And the same thing goes for the whole of society. So I think that being a man, being a woman, being a human really is what you make of it. But to an extent, following social patterns is something that's not just following the pack or being the sheeple. The sheep have been grazing in these fields for a long time, and we're all in there with them. So it's like I thought in the past, people talk about everyone being sheeple, and they'll insult them for being so dumb. And I'll say, well, would you rather be the wolf or the shepherd? Because if we're going to complain about people not being aware of certain things, we need to inform each other with respect and reverence for the fact that we're all dumb. We're all dumb. The more we think we're in the know, often the more we separate ourselves and say, no, I know what's going on and nobody else does, we lock ourselves away and find later that it comes full circle and there's nothing to do with that. So we want to have useful beliefs, useful ideas. So if what we want to do in our lives and if the things that we're doing aren't working for us, it's a matter of how useful are they, not what are others telling us is good for us. But also, we do need to listen to what others tell us if what we're doing is bad for them. See, it's about embracing the good and trying to find something that motivates you that doesn't harm other people. and maybe bring a little bit of light to this world as much as we can in those little inspirational moments while we can. So I love all of you like brothers and sisters, because we're all here together and we're all learning together. And talking to this camera is still to this day a strange thing, but I picture my audience. I picture people that want to talk about life, you know, people who know that, yes, you got to have a gusto and want to do it. You want to, you know, get in there and tackle life. But the reality is, most of us at home, we don't have that motivation all the time. Sometimes we're just bummed out. Sometimes we're tired. Sometimes we don't feel it. Sometimes we get grumpy with our own families. And then we say, God dang it, why did I get pissed? Why did I get angry? Or why was I frustrated? Or why did I ignore this person? And then we rationalize it or whatnot. But it's okay, as long as we don't beat ourselves up. So I guess I'm going to end this video now. I will talk to you all later. I hope you all have the most wonderful day, and try to add a little bit of positivity to the world as much as you can today. You know, share a tidbit, share a little bit of information with somebody, something positive. Give someone a compliment, because God knows it's hard for me to do those things. It's hard for me to even give compliments without feeling cheesy, but it's what we need. It's what keeps us going is, hey, am I doing okay? Asking your friends, as independent as we want to be, we still have to look around and say, am I following some sort of a pattern that's useful? And we know when we're not, and we know when we are. So, peace and love, and I'll talk to y'all later.